YouTube, how's it going? The Go Dials is back. Today we're ranking the top 32 NFL quarterbacks from the 2022 season and the 2022 season only. So based on this year, we're going to go from 32 to 1. Usually I rank every team starting quarterback, but because so many damn quarterbacks played this year and teams really split between guys, I decided just to rank the best 32. We're going to go, again, 32 to 1 here. So this is, again, based on this year, and it's what I saw from them, how they played, how they were as a passer, how they were as a playmaker. The production obviously matters. Winning definitely matters. Were you able to be clutch, close out games when you had the opportunity? All those things play a part when it comes to quarterback rankings here. So excited about this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. We have full playoff coverage, and we also have a bunch of off-season content as well. So join us, like, subscribe to notifications on. Follow us on Twitter, live news, rumors, updates, a must-follow. Link pinned in the comments for that, as well as our sponsors, GLD Shop, LIQUIDIV, Walk the Mock, code GOAT for all those. Again, links down below. So top 32 quarterbacks. Quarterback play was not good this year. There's some guys that I didn't really consider of them, them playing great, and they're ranked kind of high. So it's kind of one of those years here. Again, we'll see some teams with multiple quarterbacks decide to rank just the top 32, and it's just based off mainly the eye test, what I saw from them. If they miss some games, that could hurt them in the ranking. But what I saw from them mainly. Davis Mills comes in at 32. Yeah, the story with him was closing out games. Just he made the biggest mistakes in the biggest moments down the stretch of games, and that's when we saw enough from him where it's like, this isn't the guy. Usually it's you got it or not when it comes to closing out games and making the big plays in the big moments. The best quarterbacks do it. So that was the tough part for him. But there was moments throughout the year where he made a splashy play. He makes hashed a far sideline throw like on a rope, and it's like, man, this guy might got it, but and then it kind of came down to the end, and it was kind of evident that this is probably not the guy for the Texans of the future, and then, it became even more evident, and they have the second overall pick now. But the good thing is they don't have a lot of stock into Davis Mills. Not like he was a top draft pick, anything like that. But he had some production too. I mean, in the wrong end too, had some interceptions, but threw 17 touchdowns, had some yards, so he had some production there. Marcus Mariota comes in at 31. Started the year off okay. Like, wasn't super flashy besides when using his legs, but was pretty efficient with the ball, somewhat accurate, wasn't really turning it over. And they were sneaky. The Falcons were a little sneaky. But then things kind of went south a little bit. Nothing major, but you saw it kind of go south. Just was starting to miss some throws. Wasn't getting his best players the ball. Started to turn the ball over a little bit, have turnover-worthy throws. I think we saw it right around that Panthers primetime game. It was raining, so that was tough. But it was a brutal game for Marcus Mariota. And we started probably seeing it going south just before then, but that was kind of the one where it's like, yeah, I don't know about this guy for the Falcons, and then they end up going Ritter eventually. So one of those years. Stafford comes in at 30, despite missing a large portion of the year. And he was pretty disappointing. Thought about ranking Baker Mayfield too, kind of just missed the cut. Was pretty solid for the Rams when he played. He was pretty bad for the Panthers when he played. Stafford and Baker, it's not all about production, but they end up having some very, very similar production. Stafford had less opportunities, and he had more flashy plays, still those big-time Stafford plays to keep them in games or win some games down the stretch. So Stafford still made it because what I saw, I think, was good enough to be number 30. It wasn't good enough for Matt Stafford, though. Extremely underwhelming, and he was constantly pressured, and he's not the most mobile guy. That created some turnovers, but he still made those negative plays, and things just weren't right for Stafford and the Rams from the start. Sam Darnold comes in at number 29. He played a small portion of the year, and he came in and played pretty well, better than the Sam Darnold we know. Was a little more careful with the ball. He was helping the Panthers win games. I think the main reason they were winning games is, Darnold was taking care of the ball. He was playing all right football. But the run game was ridiculous. Offensive line was better. We're good to be got to see Darnold with a better offensive line. The defense was playing great. I think Wilkes had these guys prepared as well. But down the stretch, it was rare when the run game wasn't working, but when it wasn't working and they needed to make that big splash play through the air, we're going to towards the second half of the Bucs game, huge game. Darnold still couldn't quite do it. I guess again, he was better than what we've seen in the past, but still couldn't quite do it there. But again, he looked all right for Sam Darnold. Next group of guys here, Deshaun Watson comes in at 28. Played a small portion of the season as well, but I expected to rank him higher. If I had to predict, was a little underwhelming, but understandable. Was very rusty. Was out of football for quite a while, but just didn't look like his normal self. the accuracy was the issue, kind of just missing some throws, some layup throws you expect him to make, but I think the rust could be a legitimate excuse. I think he got a little bit better at the very end there, starting to use his legs a little bit more. The Washington game maybe stands out. But yeah, even though it was a small portion and he was rusty, it's a little underwhelming there. I thought he'd be ranked a little bit higher if I had to predict where I'd be ranking Watson, at the end of the year. Heineke's a tough one to rank. He comes in at 27. Now, yeah, I guess he only played a portion too, a little bit larger than Watson. But he comes in, and the Commanders start winning football games. He's making plays. He's taking care of the football. Yeah, he's making clutch plays at the end of games. Packers game stands out. Some of these games like around that time, and kind of doing the opposite of when Wentz was turning the ball over and wasn't finding ways to win. Heineke was doing that, and the Commanders went from maybe worse than what we thought they would be to when Heineke came in, they might be a little bit better. They're winning a bunch of ball games, looking pretty good. So based off that, he'd be ranked a lot higher. But then things kind of went south. Now he's starting to turn the ball over. But more importantly, not getting the job done, just not having enough big plays, closing out games, and the defense has him in games, and then he gets benched again. So kind of went south there for Heineke. So it was a little all over the place with that one. Comes in at 27. Russell Wilson comes in at 26. Extremely underwhelming season for him. His numbers end up looking a little bit better than at the end of the year. He played a little bit better, but the numbers might look a little bit better than what we saw this year. When they were in the season, alive, trying to win football games, he couldn't really do it. They were underwhelming with their offense. They couldn't score enough points. Just 3 and outs like crazy, just not enough there. And obviously turning the ball over at some bad times. And honestly, he was a little fortunate to turn the ball over more, than he did. But Hackett gets out, maybe lights a fire underneath him and the rest of the team. And he starts playing a little bit better down the stretch. I guess, down the stretch I still consider that Christmas game down the stretch, and that was brutal. And Hackett was still there for that, but fired the day after. But he played down the stretch minus the Christmas game, played a little bit better, but extremely underwhelming, just could not get the job done. I mean, how many games were the Broncos in, but they just were not scoring points? The defense was constantly on the field. It's just tough. Mac Jones comes in at 25. Yeah, started pretty poorly. Zappy looked better at times. Couldn't really get production, couldn't get points, couldn't make the big plays, but was turning the ball over. But then was starting to play a little bit better. Kind of flipped the touchdown interception ratio, was making more explosive plays, had some decent moments. So did play better down the stretch, but down the stretch includes that last game, which wasn't great to win to get in the playoffs, and a couple turnovers there against the Bills. So that wasn't great either. The play calling didn't help him, but was much better his rookie year. Pretty underwhelming season for Mac Jones there. He comes in at 25. 24, Jacoby Brissett. Didn't think he would be ranked ahead of Deshaun Watson, even though we knew he was going to play more games. Brissett honestly probably played a little bit better than I thought he would. He still had some moments, maybe down the stretch of games they were in, or they had a lead and they kind of let it get away, or maybe they made that one mistake. And looking at the Chargers one at the end, that stands out. Brutal mistake. So we started with the rankings with guys that, sloppy play, couldn't close out games, bad at the end maybe. Now, maybe starting to get into some guys that maybe just didn't have quite enough to be ranked higher. And then, Brissett, I guess a little bit of both, a little bit maybe closing out games. But there was times where the Browns offense looked explosive, like really more explosive than they were with Deshaun Watson. Like even through the air, they had some really good games, a lot of quick passing game, but still, so Brissett honestly ended up being a little bit better than expected. Ryan Tannehill, wasn't as good as he normally is, but there was a stretch where he kind of just seemed like last year's Tannehill, which was better than 23, and then he got injured at the end of the year as well, so that played a part. But yeah, it was tough. He was playing all right, and the Titans were winning. They were playing pretty good, and everything kind of went south, and part of that, Tannehill was out, obviously, dealing with an injury. Never came back in, so tough one with the Titans, Tannehill with the injuries there. 22, Andy Dalton. Statistically, he kind of looked okay, mainly looking at the touchdown interception ratio. Didn't turn the ball over a whole lot, but I thought he did in crucial moments. You look at the Cardinals primetime game where it felt like it was going to be a shootout and the Saints could win in it, but then started rapidly turning the ball over. But other than that, he didn't turn the ball over a ton. I think Winston would have turned it all over more. But that was the issue with Dalton, was maybe just not enough. There was games where the Saints were in where it was mainly relying on their defense. Very early in the year, they felt like an offense team. It was weird. But for the most part, it's like just not enough offensively, not enough big plays. So that's where you kind of wonder, where's Winston? I mean, Dalton more accurate, can take care of the ball a little bit more, so that's what their thinking was. But yeah, I just want a little bit more, maybe not just quite enough from Andy Dalton, but it was somewhat accurate. Took care of the ball somewhat there. He comes in at 22. Kenny Pickett, tough one to rank, comes in at 21. Tough one to rank because he started off pretty poorly, which is, I mean, he's a rookie getting thrown in there for Mitchell Trubisky. It's not like he's, coming in learning from a big-time guy. So that's tough. You can expect him to play kind of poorly, which he did, probably in a spot that wouldn't get him ranked in the top 32, but he really picked it up. I was impressed by Pickett down the stretch of the season, throwing the ball better, more accurate, using his legs better. It just seems smarter, making big plays, winning games, clutch plays, game-winning drives, final drives. Again, I said winning some games, so that was kind of what got him going, got him up these rankings. And if he continues to play, it continues to progress kind of the way he did at the end, he could continue to climb the rankings. Even when he was playing better, though, there were times where it was kind of, they weren't doing enough offensively, relying on their defense a bit. So it's not like it was perfect when at the end, but I was impressed by Kenny Pickett down the stretch. It was a little better than he might have started off worse than expected, but then finished definitely better than expected, right, for where I thought he was going to be at. Next group of guys here, Kyler Murray at number 20. Did not expect to be ranking Kyler Murray down here. He did miss somewhat of a portion of the season, but he was a little underwhelming when he was in there, when the Cardinals were healthy. Just wasn't getting the job done like he normally does. Making costly mistakes. I mean, running with the ball loose in his hands, fumbling the ball, and then some turnovers and bad moments. Mainly what stood out, there was a lot of crucial 3rd and 4th downs the Cardinals did not convert this year, and Kingsbury definitely deserves some blame. I feel like he's getting all of it, though. A lot of those moments were bad decisions by Murray, not seeing the field or reading the defense correctly. So I put some of that on him as well. Maybe not running is, probably trying to stay healthy, but it happens that he's scrambling and gets hurt, but not running maybe as good as he has in the past. Some good runs, I think he ended up fumbling too. So it's just and then he gets hurt, so that obviously puts him down the ranks as well. So it was a tough one for Murray. I expect more from him. Justin Fields at 19 is a tough one to rank too, because running-wise, he was ridiculous. I mean, the highlights from Fields this year are probably mainly running, and they're a sight to see for sure. So he's definitely the best running quarterback, which was pretty damn impressive. The way he sheds sacks and sheds tacklers, a strong runner, even though he did end up having kind of the durability thing as well, but he still was physical runner. But in terms of the passing, I did think it got better from last year and then from earlier this year, which you would hope it would, because it was bottom tier of the NFL. But it still needs to improve more, so hopefully it can continue to progress that way. Seeing the field, getting the ball out in time is one thing I saw, which he's 2 years in, and he didn't even play every game yet, so that was kind of a knock on him coming out. That was something he had to work on, so he's still working on it. That's all right. My thing is closing out games. That's my thing. That's my big knock, and maybe why I couldn't rank him higher, because I do take wins and quarterbacks seriously and to be able to close out games no matter the situation. And I thought the Bears, they only won 3 games at the first overall pick because of that. I thought they were in position. They were in position to win a lot more games, and they kind of just shut down. Teams figured out ways to stop Fields from running. He couldn't do it through the air. So I wanted to see him like once kind of close out a game. So he kind of gets a knock for me for that, because that's a big part of quarterbacking. The best in football were able to do that from the jump, honestly. Brock Purdy comes in at 18. Only played a portion of the season as well. He looked pretty damn good. He's still going into playoffs. But he was very efficient with the ball, very accurate, made big-time plays, escaped pressure at the right time, made plays on the run, throwing on the run, and he's got his team winning. And it's weird. Garoppolo is better, and he played better than Purdy this year, but the offense almost seems like it's a little more in sync all of a sudden, where they're getting this guy involved, that guy involved, and they're winning in so many different ways. I think it might be McCaffrey getting going more and more. It might be more of that, but Purdy definitely deserves some credit here. I'm kind of assuming things there, but so Purdy definitely deserves some credit, and has been very impressive in his winning ball games. Derek Carr comes at 17. Very underwhelming from Derek Carr this year, but he's still, he wasn't terrible. I think people are talking like he was terrible. He still made some big time plays. There's still some throws that Derek Carr makes like these big plays that not too many guys can make, like the best of the best make. And he was still doing those things. Again, he wasn't as good. He had some bad decision making at times, but he would get the Raiders off to good starts, and he'd make the big plays and get them leads. And then he wasn't good down the stretch of games. I hated the adjustments from the coaching staff. There was none basically, but again, Carr obviously was underwhelming. We have him down at 17. It's a guy we usually rank, around 10, around there. So, but I do still think the Raiders are making a mistake choosing McDaniels over Carr, which seems to be what they're doing there. Next, 16, Lamar Jackson, again, only played a little bit of the season, but people forget he was having a pretty good year. When he was playing him, he wasn't running as much, but I thought he was throwing the ball pretty well, especially given the receivers he had. But and he was getting the job done. The Ravens were winning games. There's a lot of close games. They were finding ways to win in the end. And Lamar Jackson, there was one point very early this season where maybe he was in the MVP conversation, the way too early MVP conversation. So based on what I saw, and it's tough because he didn't play a whole lot of games, but based on what I saw from him, he was playing pretty good football. I wanted him to run more, but I did like that he was kind of throwing more and kind of trying to stay healthy. Ends up getting hurt though, and then him missing games is kind of what has him, a guy that we are used to seeing well inside the top 10 at 16. Jimmy Garoppolo was playing great. Another guy that missed some time, but he was playing some really good football, and the Niners were just getting rolling too with him. It seemed like he was having his best year, and that's coming off an injury. And again, of course, he got hurt again, but I thought he was having his best year. I thought he seemed not a whole lot different, but different in a good way. More big plays, and was just a little more efficient with the ball, a little more accurate with the ball. Timing was better. So I was thrilled about the way Jimmy Garoppolo was playing. Like, he was going to be a top 10 ranking if I thought if he continued to play there. But you can say that with a lot of these guys like Tua, and then Dak missed a portion of the season as well. And Dak's a weird one to rank because he had these big wow Dak plays that makes you want to rank him in the top 10, but he was very sloppy with the ball. So you combine the sloppy with the ball. And, I mean, the big plays that he's capable of making and did make is why he's in the top 15. But sloppy ball and missing some of the season will get him lower than where we're used to seeing Dak ranked. Tua Tagovailoa was having a monster year. Maybe was in that MVP conversation as well. Was very accurate with the ball and making big plays. Like, two things we haven't really seen a whole lot from Tua. And he was somewhat accurate before, but two things we really haven't fully seen from Tua. And he looked great. The Dolphins were one of the hottest teams at football at one point. And I think teams started to game plan a little better. And then Tua, maybe one too many concussions, obviously, unfortunately. And so he was starting to play a little worse. But as a season as a whole, when he played, he looked pretty damn good. And then he missed some games as well. So if he was able to play every single game, and maybe he still would have went downhill like he kind of was, he would have been ranked higher in 13 because most of the season he was playing great. And if he would have kept playing the way that way and played the whole season, I mean, we're talking top 5. We're talking top 5. So there was portions where he looked like a top 5 quarterback. So Tua finishes the year at number 13. Curious to see what happens with his future. Hoping him the best. Hopefully get to see more of that healthy Tua because it was fun to watch this year. Next group of guys, Aaron Rodgers at number 12. Goes from MVP to 12. Still was all right, but just didn't seem right, obviously this year. Obviously didn't have Devonta Adams, didn't have the receivers, got guys running wrong routes, dropping the ball, but still was a little off, was throwing the ball in harm's way a bit, was picked off a bit. He had some games we're just not used to seeing from Aaron Rodgers as well. And there was times where I thought they could have been running the ball a little bit more. And some of that's on LaFleur, but I think Rodgers kind of checking out of the play and, kind of playing hero ball, which you can't really blame him for trying to do because he's Aaron Rodgers, but they could have ran the ball, which they started to do at the end, and they started winning some ball games. So off year for Aaron Rodgers, still comes in at number 12. Daniel Jones, did not expect to see him maybe before the year being ranked at a number 11. Wasn't crazy productive through the air, which, last week in the first playoff game he was, but wish he did a little bit more through the air, but I guess didn't need to at the end of the day. Was pretty accurate. Again, another guy that was kind of efficient. He was a little fortunate. Some turnovers either didn't count or were dropped, I thought, this year. But even with that, he didn't really turn the ball over much. With 5 interceptions, he took care of the football a lot. Had some splash plays. Obviously, used his legs. It's a big thing as well. And then he won ball games. So he got the Giants to the playoffs. So that's a big thing as well. Tom Brady at 10. Maybe a little bit of an off year for Tom Brady, but still was super productive. Maybe had a little more turnover-worthy plays, compared to what we're used to. But Late in the game, you see Tom Brady playing Tom Brady ball, like late in the fourth quarter, final drives, orchestrating winning drives there. But yeah, you saw a little bit of a step down this year. Maybe the offensive line played a part of that, but I don't even think without that. I think you can see a little bit of a step down this year, but still comes in number 10. Jared Goff, another guy we didn't expect to be ranked at 9 going into this year, and he comes in at 9, was super productive for the Detroit Lions. A well-called offense, obviously. Really like the playbook and the system there for Goff, and he really succeeded in that. And he had his moments where they lost games because they couldn't quite close them out, and then Goff kind of looked like the old Goff or the normal Goff. And but overall, was very productive. Made big plays. Was he overly clutch? I don't know. Just a lot of guys in the top 10 that were pretty clutch. I mean, at times, obviously, but maybe that would be what pushed his rank a little bit higher. But it's weird, because it's weird to see a Goff like that. Will we continue to see that going forward? I like that offense, the way it's called a lot. Mainly the playbook, the style of play there. So I think that definitely helps as well. So Goff comes in at number 9. Next group of guys, Geno Smith at number 8. And Geno Smith was on fire to start the year, and he was overall very good the whole year. But he was ranked higher in this for a good portion for me throughout this year. Was just phenomenal throwing the ball, which we didn't expect, but stepping past pressure, letting the ball sling. Not just being a game manager, like making big-time plays. The Seahawks team we thought would be a struggling passing team. We thought it'd be a run-first team. It just wasn't with that because Geno Smith was able to play ball out there. Down the stretch of the season, they started to struggle a little bit more. He started to turn over the ball a little bit more, maybe take some more sacks. In the playoff game, he wasn't bad at all, actually. He was starting to make some big plays again. So I think down the stretch of the regular season, though, he did kind of push himself down a little bit because I was ranking him towards that top 5 for a portion this year because he was fantastic. Kirk Cousins at number 7. Kirk was extremely clutch this year. He was kind of the closer, maybe the best closer in football. The performances he had in the fourth quarter to come from behind or close out games, and the Vikings were in games. Mainly that. Kirk Cousins going and winning games, making the big-time plays when it mattered most. And he was productive, too. I mean, a lot of yards. The only thing, he did have some interceptions out there. That was kind of the thing. But super productive when it came for just throwing the ball, the yards, the touchdowns. But, again, I think just going out there, winning football games, closing it out when, situation wasn't perfect, which he does have some pretty good weapons, but situation in terms of the defense constantly giving up points, like, all right, I got to go dig us out of this hole again, and then going and doing that. And you wouldn't guess it, but he was hit the most out of any quarterback this year, wasn't even sacked the most, and made big plays even with that situation while getting hit. So I thought that was pretty damn impressive from Kirk Cousins, even though the Vikings season, the way it ended at the end, was pretty damn underwhelming. Obviously, mainly because of the defense. Number 6, Trevor Lawrence. I was back and forth between 6, 7, Lawrence and Cousins. I thought Cousins, he won more. He's a little more clutch at the end, but Lawrence is getting better and better. Still alive right now and does use his legs. That was a factor as well. I thought he used his legs pretty well in key moments. So Lawrence comes in at 6. He still had some sloppy moments early here and there, like kind of remind us of last year, but then really got going. He just makes those throws that only a handful of guys, the guys in the top 5 can make, now 6. Only a select few can make them. So still making those throws, buying some times with his legs, making the splash plays, clutch plays down the stretch of the season, the stretch of games, and his team's still alive because he's playing pretty well. I know he had some turnovers in the first playoff game, but was clutch down the stretch as well. So Lawrence coming in at number 6, really good second year, and a lot of hope there that he can become an elite quarterback. Justin Herbert, I consider an elite quarterback. It comes in at number 5. Justin Herbert was great, and it honestly was a little underwhelming at the same time because maybe he just expected a little bit more. I wasn't really thrilled with their, the play calling and situations like that. But Herbert was fantastic, knowing how to use his talents, his arm, and got the Chargers in the playoffs, obviously this year. Maybe honestly expect a little bit more. I thought maybe he'd be in that MVP conversation. He really wasn't, but I guess he's really not that far off because he was just a fantastic quarterback this year. He is a fantastic quarterback. He comes in at number 5, and the Chargers, Herbert and the Chargers season ended in a disappointing way, obviously. And then we're on to the top 4. They're all pretty damn close. Josh Allen comes in at 4. It's tough because Josh Allen uses his legs so well. that you almost want to boost them up because of that as well. And Hurts in 3-4, the same guy. Both guys use their legs extremely well. But Allen, obviously, with the big plays through the air that not too only these guys can make, was a little sloppy with the ball here and there. Maybe that's probably what is splitting these elite guys up. When I think all these guys are kind of in the conversation for one. Herbert's an elite quarterback like these guys, but I kind of knew he was going to be right there at number 5 when making these rankings today. But Allen kind of in that conversation for one. You consider him there. It's not like it's not super, super close if we're talking percentage, chance they should be at 1 or, but in that, what splits them up maybe is the sloppy play sometimes can turn the ball over, but he can make up for it. Hurts comes in at 3, and he was in that 1 conversation for a lot of this year and still kind of is. Just so impressive. I mean, insane difference on where he was and where he's at now. And he got better last year. It was better than expected last year at times. But the huge strides that he made. It's not – the arm talent was always there. He had arm strength. He improved the accuracy, which was great. But just up here, being smart, the timing on throws – knowing where to go, reading coverages, knowing what to do on 3rd down, 4th down, just knowing situational stuff, just a lot smarter. I think that's what people aren't really talking about. Like, people are just talking about he made huge plays, which he did. Made huge plays with the air, a lot on the ground, but I think he's just a lot smarter this year. I think that's the main thing, and that kind of created everything else. Did miss some games down the stretch, which maybe resulted in him not being number 2, perhaps. Which was tough for me between, or maybe it helped. He could have been number 1 because he was number 1 for a little bit this year too. But the debate between Burrow and Hurts. 2 things: Hurts ended up missing just a little bit at towards the end of the year, and first things first with the quarterbacks. I looking at the passing, and I thought Burrow was the better passer, even though Hurts insane strides. I don't even want to know what's going to happen next year. It's crazy. And was extremely good as a passer. I thought Burrow was a little bit better of a passer, though. But Hurts got those W's up there. But I can't say it enough. Extremely impressive for Jalen Hurts. He was rightfully so in that MVP conversation. Joe Burrow comes at number 2, and he started the year off. First game of the year, just terrible. He was throwing picks like crazy. He did kind of bring his team back, though, and almost clutched up and won that. But yeah, starting that game with that many interceptions and really turning around, and there was a little bit bumpy after that as well. People were complaining about the Bengals, like, what are they doing? Should Zach Taylor be fired? It was all kinds of nonsense talk. And then as the season, it wasn't. As the season started to go, he almost sounds like a long time. It really wasn't that long after the start of the season. They started to go, and they're one of the hottest teams in football, one of the best teams in football right now. And it's because their quarterback, Joe Burrow, just making smart decisions, especially while under pressure, constantly getting pressure in his face, getting hit. The placement on the ball, ridiculous. The big-time plays to win games, ridiculous. He has some damn good weapons, but the ball placement, the timing was everything there. And again, while he's constantly under pressure, and he's the main reason why the Bengals were one of the hottest teams in football down the stretch. So I thought Burrow, mainly because of his winning and because of his passing when it mattered most down the stretch of the season, is why he's at number 2. But Patrick Mahomes got to be number 1. For Patrick Mahomes reasons, he did him. He played like Patrick Mahomes, best player in football. Won games, made big time plays, made clutch plays. When it's a close game, it's the 4th quarter. It's one of those teams, maybe the only team where it's like it's over. Even if they're losing, this guy's got the ball in his hands. They're gonna go get the job done. He's gonna make whatever play. We saw that a lot this year. Whatever play necessary, he always comes up with something new, and it's just a sensational season. And then very likely will be that MVP, and I think he's deserving. It's about the MVP. It's about Mahomes, Burrow, Hurts. You can throw Allen in that conversation, and I'd put Justin Jefferson in that conversation as well. Because the dominance at the receiver position this year, I don't know if we've seen anything like it. So you got to put playmakers like that. There was some really good running backs this year too, in the conversation. But when you think Mahomes has got to be that guy, and he finishes number 1 on my top 32 quarterbacks list based on the 2022, and we're into 2023 now, but season here. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. I'm sure everyone will think their favorite quarterback should be ranked higher. That's just usually how it goes. Sometimes I tell what I say to people is, did you watch your other quarterbacks as much as you watched your quarterback? Most time the answer is no, which is okay, but that's the thing. Can you actually say your quarterback deserves to be ahead of this quarterback when you didn't actually watch them evenly? And you have the people making excuses for their quarterbacks. You know, sure, every quarterback's situation is different, but it is kind of what it is. You know, it's kind of one of those things. So that'll wrap it up for the quarterback rankings. We're always talking with you guys on Twitter. There's lots of news, rumors, updates on there. Must follow. There's a link in the comments that'll bring you directly to that. And there's also links for our sponsors, some really cool stuff out there. And we have codes to make it a lot cheaper for you guys. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on because we have full NFL coverage. When I say full, I mean full. So check out the channel. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.